We've been asked many times, what would a person, or frankly, what it comes down to is, what would a person ask God? And you could even say, if they could. What would a person ask God if you had a private audience with God? Like if you had the ability to interact with God the way Moses did. The scriptures tell us that Moses spoke to God face to face or mouth to mouth as a man speaks to his friend. And so, what would you ask God if you could? We want to address that in this vignette of videos that we're going to provide to you. There are many questions that people have to ask God, and I'm kind of dubbed as the man that hears from God and talks to God. You may say, well, what are your qualifications for that? Well, let me briefly go over them. I'll give you some qualifications. I have been prophesying over about 25 years. I've prophesied over whole congregations for hours. I have prophesied births. I have prophesied deaths. One scenario I prophesied that well, prophesy just means hearing from God, by the way. Really simple. It just means hearing from God. That's all it is. It's not difficult. I hear from God. I communicate what God says. I'm called every day by people to ask questions about what is God's disposition on this, what is God's disposition on that. As I said, births, deaths. I prophesied Roe v. Wade being overturned, which just recently happened. Prophesied who was going to be reelected in the 2012 Barack Obama presidential election, and also prophesied President Trump being the next president of the United States after the second election or the re-election of Barack Obama. I have prophesied people about marriages. I've prophesied about situations and circumstances, sicknesses, illnesses, people who are in heaven, people who didn't make it in heaven. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So I'm not a novice at any of this. I've trained people in the prophetic over many years, over decades, and help people to come into a relationship with the Lord so that they can hear from God very, very clearly. That's really like my forte, I would say. And so we'll be sharing with you, what I am sharing and will be sharing with you, will be responses from God about the various topics that we will bring up, because these are the topics that are on people's hearts, that are on people's minds. People want to know. God wants you to know him. God wants you to know. One of the biggest fallacies is that people think that God wants to keep them in the dark. That's not true. In the dark means you're operating in a kingdom of darkness. That is not God's kingdom. God's kingdom is the kingdom of light. Light. God spoke, let there be light, before there was even a sun and a moon. Light is reason, understanding, knowledge, revelation, having insight, foresight, having in hindsight. All of these things are included when God says, let there be light. God desires in his creation for things to be in the light, exposed in the open. And so the Lord wants you to know what his disposition, what his vantage point, what his perspective is. And so we'll be sharing with you these things as we share the different vignettes and different questions that you have had and that you have to ask God.